appearance on the show, Mr. David Bare. How are you, David?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. This is episode number, got to check our numbers, lucky number 66 today. What I'm going to do here real quick on Facebook, this is kind of our show before the show, is I'm going to make sure to share this with the boys because I know we're an hour earlier than we normally would today because we're running off of David Bare time, right? Because you got what are you coaching? You coaching later? You're doing something later, right?
Yeah, my kid's got basketball. I got to coach him. So
I'm coaching basketball tonight too. But your basketball's what, this afternoon?
Yeah, it's 4:00 to 5:00, so it's a little.
You know what time our basketball is?
Standard time.
And how old is he?
He's 7.
Okay, so I've got a 5-year-old, and guess what time our practice is? 6 o'clock. 6 tonight. Do you know what I mean?
Good.
So yeah, I know. So we're gonna, we'll take our steroids about 5, and we'll be ready for 6 for 5-year-old basketball. Do you know what I mean? That's how
exactly what you got to do.
Exactly. So, all right. So we are shared on Facebook, my man. You feel free to share that as well. We are live here on my page, facebook.com/David Garland. So live in Siteman Softball Nation. Also live on the Siteman Softball YouTube channel. Variety of different places here today with Mr. David Bare. We'll have some reminders about that coming up. But let's start with this fun little topic, David. So I saw a great video of you with John Kings. It was from 2019, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What's funny is I actually remember seeing that video. We didn't know each other then. 2000. I just kind of remember any kind of silly video like that we see. But so what I saw, and then you tell me what this was all about, right? 2019. What tournament was it, by the way? Just a
USSSA Winter World.
Okay, USSSA Winter Worlds, and it was a between the legs.
Mm-hmm.
Called strike 3, which is nice, but there was a nasty curve on the ball, right? Like that. I mean, that's nice anyway, right? Between the legs, strike 3, great. But there was like a break, like I wouldn't believe. Yep. So you got to tell us what the hell was going on there. What was the story behind that? You got to give us some context.
I mean, realistically, I throw that pitch decently often. I used to. Back before I knew what a knuckleball really was, like just kind of was up there chucking 4 seams. I tried to do all the crazy stuff. I was trying to do whatever Mooch could do. So I was throwing underneath the legs, also the good stuff. And funny enough about that particular tournament, Mooch was there with us. I got added late because Mooch was basically did not want to pitch. So I got added late, ended up pitching that tournament, and Mooch was like, do the thing. So I threw it underneath the legs and had a nice little curve to it. Nice and pretty strike 3. Patrick Price was behind the plate, just walked off like, yep, this is it, guys. This is, hate to break it to you. You're out.
Yeah, it was funny because sometimes on those, you see videos of funny strike 3s. Do you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. And someone will come in and be like, it was flat. Someone will say that was high and deep, or that one, I don't know. I mean, you can't make too much of an argument. I mean, it started and just curved like a mofo right over there. I don't know what argument we could make with that. Do you?
I mean, J Red said that or Oberlag, he's like, well, he didn't pause, didn't I was like, well, Jason, I pushed the limits on these things, but I absolutely stepped on the rubber, presented the ball, re-stepped, went underneath the legs. I was like, I don't know what else you can argue with right there.
I like it. It was funny that, interesting because John Kings, friend of mine, friend of ours, great ambassador of softball, was actually the very first guest on the Site podcast 66 episodes ago. So that means 66 weeks ago, which is crazy. And he's such a good ambassador for the sport. And I'm curious, 2019 that goes on there, did that do anything interesting? Did you get you know what I mean? Like you get the John Kings bump or notoriety? I always tell people don't bat. I mean, did anything interesting happen from that? Obviously, we're still talking about the same video in 2023, but just curious, kind of where that went.
The year before that, I had played some with Bad Draw's A team, with Brandon Cashwell, and then that year I'd actually signed I'd signed with Tradesman, that Joe Visser was the sponsor. So I don't think it necessarily gave me any kind of notoriety or anything. It just kind of, honestly, in a way, it kind of stunk because now that took away one of my sneak pitches. Like, hey, I'm gonna be all right here. I can use this to get somebody to get sneak by somebody. But
I got you. It's interesting about John Kings as well. Did you see a post that he made a couple of weeks ago about, he does the free agent posts, right? You weren't a free agent there. It was saying, hey, you're playing conference full time next year. So it wasn't like you're trying to get a team or anything. But he does the free agent posts. We've seen them a little less frequently now, right? Maybe people are locking on teams. But one thing I found very interesting was that he was kind of going on a rant about it, justifiably so, that sometimes you put these people out there, right? And what ends up happening is someone can't go to tournaments, or someone says, I'll only go if I'm leading off and, playing middle and being the all-star, or, I'm, XYZ ends up being a bad teammate or something like that, right? Something that ends up disaster. And what's just kind of your thoughts on that? Because I know, to me, in my opinion, getting yourself out there is a good thing. Like getting out there, getting exposed, you have to, right? And social media, the internet, all provides that for us. But you got to kind of back that ass up, if you will, to a certain degree. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, you're making people like JK look bad, and other people. Just curious your thoughts on that. I'm sure you saw that.
Jason, your comment must pause.
Oh, stop it.
You're right, Jason. I did pause though, but
yes,
you're right.
I'll have to go with the slow that one down.
But yeah, I mean, as far as the John King's post and all that good stuff, like, I think it's a great thing. I'm all for it. I know back when I first started playing ball, like, you didn't really have like BP videos everywhere. You didn't have John King's. You didn't have Swing Cartel. You didn't have all those folks. I'm all for people getting noticed, but I am also the believer of, if you request someone like that to put you out there, unless you are like skipping out on one of your current teams, like big events, like I'm talking like like a Pick a Dixie, USSSA World, their big world. Unless you're skipping out on that, if you really want to play up, you got to take the shot that's given to you, because it's not, the door doesn't open over, it's not revolving. Like it, if the door opens, you
might be once,
yes,
might be one time.
Yeah, I mean, the door doesn't always open like over and over and over. Now, granted, some people, talent level, you're gonna get more chances. Those people would probably get chances either way. But if you're one of those folks that is fringe level, kick the door wide open, take the shot you're given, and go, because you never know when that's gonna be taken away from you.
Yeah, and there's something to say about the sport about, talent, skill, being a great teammate, all those things that are very obvious, but availability is one of those top 5 traits that you have to have as well. Do you know what I mean? Yep. And I know people, and again, it doesn't work for everybody. Neither does conference softball, right? So meaning, like, there's people that get into it that are like, I'd love to go play on a team. Has to be this particular Saturday. Do you know what I mean? Between the hours of 10 a.m. and noon. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that's not the way it really works with that, as we all know that. You know what I mean? So that's a good point on that as well. Speaking of looking forward to the season, so a lot of things to discuss here. First of all, how's the knee? I know you've been how are we doing? You're on rehab right now and continuing, and you're doing well with it, but give us an update. Yeah,
I mean, according to my surgeon, as of this past week, I am dramatically farther along than he would have expected due to the severity of the tear. He has cleared me to start running. So I'm impact testing, running, doing a lot of single leg stuff. He's okay to a little bit of swings, like off of a tee, like live, like controlled environment scenarios, stuff like that. But I mean, it's, some days are great, some days not so much. Like PT today, like my legs are dead. Like, granted, they're supposed to be, but yeah, it's going. Hopefully, fingers crossed, based on the timeline they're giving me, we're looking at like the Texas dual-ish to be able to hit, and maybe Nashville-ish to be like I can play the field and be productive on both sides.
Cool. And we talked about this before. I think the key is just, you going on your timeline with it. You know what I mean? I'm sure we've all been hurt. We always want to get back as soon as possible. And there's that walking in that line of, right, you know what I mean? Matt Petrov was saying the other day, he goes, we're going to be really good hinging on 2 bad knees, right? Your bad knee and Willie's bad knee, right? That are both doing way better now. So yeah, that'll be really interesting to see how that all transpires. But I love the timeline. I love the updates you text me and stuff like that. So keep it up. By the way, a couple quick things here. Reminders on the show. Today's sponsor is the Siteman Cancer Center. Big shout out to them. Of course, sitemansoftball.com/store, lowercase store. You can get apparel, proceeds go directly to the Siteman Cancer Center. And also, SitemanSoftball.com/podcast. Got a bit of a shout out there for all the places that you can check it out. David, I don't know if you saw it last week on the episode with the very fancy, dapper Jose Hernandez that we crossed over 1 million views on the podcast in the last 66 weeks. So that's pretty cool stuff.
Nice.
You can check that out. SitemanSoftball.com/podcast. There's a lot of places you can watch and listen to the show at Siteman Softball on Instagram as well. All right. So speaking of the schedule, our season schedule's out. Let's talk about the schedule. Is there a particular event? Obviously, first of all, you got to get you healthy, right? But is there a particular event itself you're looking forward to? And then let's just talk about the season in general. What are you excited about?
I mean, from an event I'm looking forward to, honestly, I'm just wherever I can come back and I feel like I'm healthy. So if that is Texas Duel, that's like the circles on my calendar, that kind of thing. But like I don't know. There was a lot of me in the off season that was just like, man, I don't even know if I'm ever going to come back. Like my doctor before the surgery was like, hey, like just giving you a proper expectation. Like you may not ever make it back to a high level of sport. And I was like, man, this sucks. Like, okay, all right. So, I mean, looking forward to it is just really one, I want to continue to improve upon everything I've done over the past year or two. Last year was my best statistical year. Not necessarily best as far as being with the team because, moved multiple places. Had a great statistical year, ended up being second A world, all that good stuff. And this year I'm looking forward to, one, being in a location that I feel confident in and stay through that location. Mm-hmm. But two, like just showing that, one, I belong where I am. Like I belong on the watch list like I was put on. I belong in the top 4 or 5 hitters in the lineup. I belong in that 680 plus category throughout the conference stats. I always have had a chip on my shoulder about different things, but that's the one that, I get the messages or I read people's comments and talk about top 15 pitchers in the game and nobody, people don't put my name out there. And I'm just, I write those things down. I want, that's what I look forward to most.
Bulletin board material for you. Bulletin board material.
That's what I look forward to most about the season is just proving that I belong again and again and again. And proving that last year was like the 680, whatever it was that I hit was not a fluke.
Yeah. It's interesting because we talked about this actually. We talked about this last week. We talked about it 2 weeks ago on the show here is talking about how everyone on our team has some kind of chip. And that's a good thing. Do you know what I mean? Different reasons. For me, analyzing you on it, I'm just going to see if I get this right or wrong, right? Is that that's what I kind of get from you, exactly what you just said, is that do you feel like you've been, on your history performance and feel like how you play that you've been maybe overlooked sometimes or maybe just put in a category that allows you that, hey, not it's not about recognition. I'm just saying, do you think that you feel like you've gotten slighted before in the past on various things?
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. I mean, I've had situations where when I first started, it was, all right, this guy can pitch, is not ready to hit at this level. Then it was, okay, he can really pitch. He's starting to hit better. And then I got opportunities at the major level. And those opportunities, while they were fantastic, don't get me wrong, I didn't get to play anywhere near as much as I wanted, nor that really helped me overall. I mean, granted, I learned a ton. Like I learned a dramatic amount from just watching Pinkham, like when I was behind him and talking about the different approaches and stuff like that. And then with Andy in the off seasons and just picking the brains of people who have been there, done that. And, it's all fantastic. But at the end of the day, out of sight, out of mind, if you're sitting over here on the side all the time watching somebody else pitch, people forget you can do it. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things that I feel like a lot of people have taken a little bit of what I can do for granted. But I would say about 70% of that is just in my head building it up. So I have more of a chip. 30%.
That's a good thing. That's what I'm kind of getting at. I mean, that's having that kind of like slighted, overlooked chip when fueled and focused in the right direction is a huge positive. Do you know what I mean? I've also seen it be a huge negative, right? Where it becomes like where it goes the other way. Do you know what I mean? Where they're
Yeah.
just like
Yeah, the poor me.
horrible people to deal with, right? That's not you. That's why you're on this team. But I'm saying, like, that's interesting to see. And I'm curious, you just mentioned a couple pitchers. What is something I'll choose Bill Pinkham here for a second here. Bill Pinkham, what is something that he does very well?
He pushes the limit, like just way up there.
Okay.
Like,
So he tries to, meaning he's getting that
8.5, 9,
10
10-foot pitch. Yeah. And he'll get it to land. And I mean, if you watch Pinkham pitch, you just sit there and watch him for one game, you probably never see more than 2 pump fakes per pitch, but he constantly is, one, telling people where he needs to go. 2, if you hit it at him, odds are you're out. And 3, he's going to mix up his heights and speeds, and he gets to the ceiling. The ceiling is so, like, Travis, Jonas, Pinkham. Andy is like is an anomaly. Like, the flatter you throw, the easier you are to hit. Travis, Jonas, Pinkham, all those folks, the really successful, consistently year in and year out. Well, look, watch what they do. It's 9 foot, 10 foot. They're going to sneak those in a lot.
Yeah, and that's the difference between a pitcher and a thrower, right? And it's interesting too is that Brandon Cashwell mentioned Bill fields it as good as anyone as well, which I agree with for sure on that one.
He's also a little bit closer to the ground, so it's easier to catch those.
Exactly. Okay, so that's something he does well. What is something that Andy does very well?
I mean, he knows everybody. I mean, he can see your tendencies and does what he's been around for forever. I mean, it's funny. Speaking of Cashwell there, we talked about it a couple of times, and Cash was like, I think that Andy can get out the best hitters in the game more than anyone else because he knows them so well. You get a random Joe Blow that just came off the street that made it off the John King's page, and guess what? Like, they may go 4 for 4 off of Andy, but KP, Cannell, all those guys, they're going to struggle a little bit more off of him because he knows where to throw it. Like, he knows the game so well. Yeah,
and that's what someone said as best at getting the best players out. Daniel Larson, by the way, says he's going to learn how to pitch. Danny's going to learn how to pitch. He said it's hard to hit someone that's 5'3" out there, so he'll just go under the ground, kind of like a mole. Won't be able to get him. And I'll give one more pitcher because you mentioned him earlier. Is Mooch, right? Like we always thought Mooch is always in the conversation too. What's interesting is that every year people are like, Mooch is done. Mooch has been, it's too long. And then he comes back and look at last year, right? Second at AA Worlds. I don't think anyone picked Bay Area Legends, except maybe Bay Area Legends, right? To finish second there. Mooch doing his thing. He'll be back out there this year going with the Rock Run fellas now on that new team in AA. What does Mooch do very well?
I mean, he hides the ball like nobody's business. You never really know when it's coming out of his hands. Even if his movement's not necessarily there, whatever it may be, like, you never know, one, where the ball's coming out. 2, is he going to push the 5 seconds? Is he not going to push the 5 seconds? It's constant timing. Just, you're messed up. Like, the best thing to do against him is just sit and wait for it to come out of his hands. Like, there's nothing else you can do. And I also will say that having pitched behind or with several different pitchers throughout off seasons, all that good stuff, if Mooch walks somebody, 95% of the time, I think it's on purpose because he is pitching around you to get to the guy that's behind you because the guy behind you has hit 2 ground balls the last 2 at bats, and he remembers all this. I don't know how he remembers all this at all the time, but he remembers all of this. So he's constantly up here.
I got Mooch. Someone says, Jay Red says Mooch is the toughest to call in 12 years I've been there. And I think, that makes sense because 1, you got a lot of shenanigans going on, right? Yep. And number 2, he's got that very, very low release point, right? Yep. Like, that's what he does probably better than anyone else, meaning like he gets it down there and you're like, I don't know what that is. So I do not envy you, Jay Red, or any of the umpires having to deal with that because that does not sound like a fun activity. So that's interesting. I think it's good to hear from someone like yourself that's a pitcher and a hitter to hear from, kind of what your take is on some of the other top pitchers in the game as well. So that's interesting to hear. Now, looking forward to our season. So Siteman Pure, it's around the bend. I mean, we're getting there right now. It's that weird time where it's like, I want it to kind of hurry up. Let's get to March and get going here at the end of March. What are you excited about for the season? And also, not necessarily excited. What are you thinking of the team and expectations for this year?
So as far as what I can remember of the folks that are coming back, and I've watched I can't say a good bit of USSSA Live, but I watched a lot of USSSA Live to kind of pick up who does what and all that good stuff. I think that you brought back a very good core. And I'm really excited about the fact that you have guys, I mean, in the group chat, like I've been on teams in the off season where our group chat's dead for a month. And I mean, I think that we have kind of blended a little bit. A lot of that I think comes from the fact that, of course, you got most of your guys have either played together or they live close to each other, all that good stuff. You can play in a lot of off-season events, that kind of thing. I'm ready to fit in, like to be there, like, kind of, again, prove that I should be there type thing. But I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things, is to be able to go through the season and build the softball relationships that turn into friendships outside of softball. And that's more what I'm looking forward to as far as the team itself. Now, expectation wise, I mean, I want to be, like I've said in the group multiple times, like above 500 every weekend, like every single weekend above 500. And at the end of October 4th or whatever day it is, you're the last team standing there with Jim Pilla handing you a trophy. Like that's the expectation.
Yeah, and it was interesting. One about the group chat is that, the longest we've gone without a message, I think, is 4 seconds. So it's it's sometimes you gotta sometimes it's a bit much. But yeah, you're right though. The guys, and realize last year a lot of the guys didn't know each other, and even this year it's still there's still a new but keeping that core and now being able to add strategically to it, I think was obviously the goal that we had. It's going to be interesting to see. One thing I like that you did early on in the chat is in our group chat, not to reveal too much, but like there's a mix of serious and there's a mix of like funny, hilarious shenanigans, right? You got both, right? And it obviously depends on what's going on and whatever. But something I like that you did was, I think it was a couple months ago, you actually asked people, and you were dead serious about this, like, what are your goals for this year? And I believe you wrote them down, and put them on so that we have
spreadsheet.
We have an Excel spreadsheet of people writing their goals, individual goals, and team goals, I guess you could put, because people put kind of both in there. And I think you had to have 3? Is that what it was? I think that's what you went with.
I wanted 2 for each.
2 for each. Okay, so it's 2 for each. Was it 2 team and 2 individual goals? Is that what it was? Something like that? Yeah. And it was interesting because I'm glad that our guys have the ability to take off, I'm going to say this for lack of a better term, the cool kid hat, right? That people have in sports. And you know what I mean? I've seen it, my whole life, right? Being able to take that out and actually do like a exercise like that, for lack of a better term, and be able to do it and get it on paper, I think it's going to pay dividends. Do you know what I mean? It just kind of shows you can have fun, shenanigans, jokes, but then there's also obviously a serious side to it, because there's a lot involved here in conference softball, Yep. And so that's gonna be interesting to see. We won't reveal those. We won't reveal those. That's for internal use only. But that is one of the key things. Speaking of rosters, David. And by the way, if you guys have any questions for Mr. David Bare, type them in while we're on here live. We're live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. We're live in a couple places on Facebook. If you have any burning questions for him or I, type those in the chat. We're talking about something about this, rosters right now, right? So right now, not a ton of rosters up online if you go through the gamut, right? You got 3 major teams. They've got their rosters up. You got Competitive Edge, you've got MPT, and you've got Rismondo. We haven't heard any finality from Monster or anything like that about what's going on there, right? Scoot to AA. You've got some teams listed that don't have a roster yet. So, for example, Classic Glass doesn't have a roster, but I see a bunch of Classic Glass guys on other teams, so that'll be interesting to see who's on Classic Glass. Not really sure. Chick-fil-A's got their roster up. What is it? The new, I got to bring this up here too as well. Let me just see here. I can just scoot on over to the roster page here and take a quick look. I'm going to click on AA. You've got Chick-fil-A, their roster's up. You've got Classic Glass not up. That JBL D1 team, they were one of the first teams to get their roster up.
Strong.
That's going to be a good team, isn't it?
Yeah. Very, very strong.
Yeah. The only thing that's interesting about new teams, you know what I mean? Like new teams where it's a blend, the talent level you can't argue against. 0%. You can't be like, well, that team's not talented, right? That's a
Yep.
very talented team. Does it all work out? We don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, meaning like the chemistry, how does it all work out? But that team looks very good. I agree with you. Extremely strong. You've got the former Rock Run team mixed with a couple guys, Ryan McClanahan and Mooch. That's now Roof X Revolution. They're up. Their roster's up. Seminoles are up. Sports Reach is up. They reloaded a bit this year. I think they picked up a lot of guys from Precision, I think someone was saying. A couple different spots. And we've got West Point is up. There's two other teams listed who might have accidentally signed up, like not really signed up for AA. I think they maybe entered their thing wrong for the season. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's something called Natural Softball I never heard of, and Texas Legends.
Probably played an open event. And
probably played an open, right. Yeah. Just like a 50-plus team accidentally. That'll happen. Welcome to the registration. But taking a look at that, any thoughts so far on the AA division and in the major division for that matter?
I mean, major is going to be extremely competitive amongst the three. I mean, competitive edge is going to go as far as I'm assuming LC's still pitching for them full time, like their main guy. They're going to go as far as he can take them, because they're going to hit like nobody's business. They have a really good defense all across. I don't know what in the world's going on with Monstub. I'm sure that they're going to get that all figured out, but I'm sure they'll be tough. If they're not going to be tough for the major division, I don't think they'll play major. Zirkle chiming in there. Speaking of Zirkle, that man, I swear he has found the fountain of youth. Dude runs more than anybody I've ever seen in my entire life. I've never been jealous of someone running, but right now, because I can't really run, kind of jealous of it. Never going to get the 50 some odd miles he ran at the duel, but that's a whole nother conversation. I think that MPT coming back, obviously they're the favorite right now. Like they're great. And they pulled out the major. One can argue that the ball kind of helped them better than others, yada. But realistically, I mean,
But that being said, everyone's playing with the same ball. So I mean, you know what I mean.
They did what they were supposed to do.
I don't take that argument's crap. Even we had games last year where like the ball sucked and we lost because of the ball. Well, guess what? They also hit the ball, right? You know what I'm saying? So I get what you're saying, but MPT. Yeah, MPT will be strong.
Really good. They're the old adage of Resi in October. I'm sure that they're going to have what they need to have. Helmer does a great job over there. And I think that the AA level right now, from what I know of AA, if you're beating JBL, you're probably major. But I think that there are still some teams that have yet to fill out because they're waiting on the trickle down. Seeing what's going to happen with Munster if Munster comes back. Seeing if Munster doesn't come back, some of those players are going to go to some of these other major teams.
Yeah, it goes.
Which does that now in turn open somebody up that's on a major team falling down, and then that just falls down to the A division. The trickle down happens. So I think that's part of the reason why that you don't see a lot of rosters right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were talking about this right before we went on the air today, and we talked about that a little bit, how, some teams, us being one of them, like, here's our roster, double middle fingers. Do you know what I mean? Here we go, right? Chick-fil-A's like that. West Point's like, there's major teams like anyone that's basically up there now is like that, right? But it's interesting that there seems to be a lot of waiting in the weeds. Do you know what I mean? Because we don't know also how many teams are going to be. You don't know a lot of other factors. And I was talking to DW about this towards the end 2022 holidays, and he was saying there's going to be a large percentage of people, in his opinion, I forgot what percentage he said, but pretty large, that played conference in 2022 that will not be playing conference in 2023. That could be related to, you could give it 50 different factors. You could say that there might be less teams because of reasons. You could say because of scheduling reasons, right? Like, is now, you really got to be at those duels, and the schedule is condensed and more intense. If you're a small, local, regional-ish team, it might be hard to get to certain things. It's going to be interesting to see how many teams are actually end up in conference. And you're right, though. If a team folds, which inevitably happens every year.
Yep.
Somebody, right? Somewhere. I don't know if it's going to be a major team. That would be which has happened. A AA team, an A team, whatever. There is that trickle-down effect, right? That happens. Is that next thing you know, there's these players available. It'll be very interesting to see how that all that all plays out. Now, curious, because I know you're a student of the game as well. Do you think that numbers will be down in terms of amount of teams in conference, and is that a good or bad thing in your opinion?
I'm not totally sure yet, but I do think that the schedule being condensed is going to have a slightly negative effect that people aren't expecting, because now you're going to have the B conference team that used to think, okay, well, we can go to Atlanta, or Columbus, Georgia, we can go to Maryland, we can go to all these other events and have a chance, like we can play. They're not going to be able to afford it, because they're just not like now. I think that the B teams are a true punching bag. Before, like, you might lose your first game, you might win your first game against somebody local, play a Resi puts you in the loser bracket, and you run off 2 or 3 games before you end up with another conference team. But now, like, the schedule is so condensed that some great events like the Smoky used to be like, you have to go here because of the points. And I think there's going to be like 5 events now that are going to have the same amount of points as the Smoky. So while it's fun to free up and, it's a great family atmosphere, it's not necessarily as important anymore. So I think it's kind of twofold. You're either going to get the more serious teams or you're not, but between flight prices going up, gas is going up, the price of eggs is ridiculous, that kind of thing. Like, I think it's going to be a little bit less overall in the conference this year, and I don't think that's a great thing because you don't want to read writing on the wall. But maybe I'm wrong. We have to wait and see kind of thing.
And we don't know. We're speculating, right? But I'll put a little bit on it too. Is it good to have, for lack of a better term, a tighter conference, meaning the actual teams that are in there, more of a quality over quantity situation?
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Might end up being more of a positive in the long run of the conference. Don't know. Do you know what I mean? Is it about volume? Yeah. Is it about volume? And having a team that can barely get to the events, do you know what I mean? It's kind of puttering in on a tank of gas, versus teams that are like, hey, the seriousness level and kind of honestly the investment into it from sponsors and things like that. So it'll be very interesting to see. Drew Rogers made a good point here about local teams. Okay, so like last year, for example, we did not play a local team until Cincinnati. We did not play a local team until Cincinnati. And that means we played in at least 3 to 4 events before Cincinnati. Do you know what I mean? Minimum.
Starting with S&E, I mean, we played 3 local teams in Vegas before we played competitive edge. So, I mean, right. It's a lot of that's kind of your draw. I mean, obviously last year y'all were B, but that's part of the reason that you didn't run into a local team. You don't have the higher seed.
Correct. And it'll be interesting to see this year. Not concerned about how many local teams we play or don't play. Doesn't matter. But it'll be interesting to see also with this new schedule, are there more or less local teams in these events as well? Because you could say, okay, this is interesting that you could say that because of the quality over quantity, maybe there will be more because they're thinking, hey, there's kind of one chance at this. Also might be a little scary because you're going to have big dogs in every single event as well. Do you know what I mean? I don't know which route that's going to go. I'd be interested to hear from local teams as well on this. If you're a local team within the vicinity of one of these conference events this year, are you going to play in it? I'd love to hear about that, David. And what do you think about that? And by the way, do you think local teams should play in them?
Well, I'm a huge believer in local teams playing. I think that that's a fantastic thing. It's one of the ways you can get noticed because if you go 4 for 4 off of Andy, there were people back in the day that you got paid because you could hit off of Andy. Like you go 4 for 4 off of Andy, something happens. You show out, you play really well, you get noticed. But I think that the conference being condensed, you're going to have more actual conference teams at each event. So in order to make it an event that can be Friday, Saturday, and 3 teams or 4 teams back on Sunday, you might get turned away at the door, if you're a non-conference team. But I still think you absolutely should play especially if you are a D team, a C team, and anything above that. But if you're a D or C team, go learn what you need to learn. Yeah, you might get your skull beat in. You never know. But go learn what you need to learn. You might find out that as a D team, you can play a lot better with those extra 3 or 4 home runs than you can with 4. So, I mean, it's a learning experience.
Yeah, and I think it's a good team. I think it's a good thing for local teams to hop in there when they can. If there's space and you could get there, do you know what I mean? And that, come for the experience. You never know what'll happen. There's always upsets every single year. Do you know what I mean? Yep. Somewhere, and that happens. By the way, a couple of quick shout outs I want to give, and Mr. Jason Oberlag, J-Red, I know recently had a hospital stay. It was a heart situation. I hope you're doing better. Please let us know. I'm assuming that you're on here typing that you're doing better, right? That's a good thing. But we were all thinking about you in the softball community. We also have, I'm not going to name names on this one, David, right now, because, I know people, privacy is very important to people, but we have a couple people in our world that we're just sending a lot of prayers out to in the softball community. You guys know who you are. 2 guys in particular I'm thinking of. One's going through a very personal medical situation that we're ours with. One's going through kind of a family situation. And so just want to know that you guys, always in our thoughts with this as well, as much as we're goofing around and having fun with this. Just want to give some shouts to some of the serious aspect of it as well. J-Red says, thanks. I'm out for 2023 due to the heart attack, but back 24. Well, I guess that's bad and good news, I'm going to call it. You know what I mean? Like, that sucks, but I'm glad that you'll be back. Hopefully we'll see you at an event. Maybe you can come to an event at some point this year. Come and
we'll be out in Arkansas at the end of March. I mean,
we will.
I'd love to see you there, Jason. I mean, that's one of my favorite people. One of my favorite umpires for sure. Like, we've butted heads a few times on the field, but I never, I've lost a couple people in my family due to different heart issues, and when that happened, it was just immediate gut punch, and I'm really glad that you're doing better, Jason.
That's great. And by the way, there's a complete side conversation for those that are on Facebook here or looking in the chat here between Mr. Jason Oberlag and Mr. Mooch going on about release points and stuff like that and shenanigans. So I love that. Love a little side conversation here while we're going on with this episode. I'm just taking a quick look at that as well as we roll in the season. And yes, David, you just mentioned something very, very important. I want to make sure I get this date right on my schedule here. Is that so we are playing a preseason tournament. And we wanted to didn't want to overdo it. A lot of guys on our team do different things. There's pickup team playing in the windows, a lot going on, right? But we wanted to make sure before the duel, we get a tournament in, get together. Yeah. More, for lack of a better term, socially than anything, of course, right? To mean, make sure everyone's on the same page and getting to know each other a little bit on the field for some of the new guys as well. Make sure that we can any little kinks out, because you don't want to be figuring those out in the game of the duel, right? Yep. You're not like, oh, great, we're playing, competitive edge. Let's figure this out right now. Not a great time for it. You know what I mean? No. So we had to kind of take into consideration a lot of scheduling things, a lot of things that are going on in the world. But it looks like right now, as of now, we're going to Arkansas. And I want to say that is the weekend of March 25th. March 25th, because I believe the weekend before is the Trip Roth, which a lot of people are playing in. I know Drew Rogers has his team in there. There's things like that going on. And Drew is saying that Bounty is the official name, trying to round up all the good Arkansas teams to be there. So that's where we're going. We're going to Arkansas on the 24th, 25th, and 26th of March. It's going to be called the Bounty. Is that what you're saying? And I think that's kind of it's one of their season events that they run, like a series throughout the year. But we're going to come there. We'll see Ken Hawk and the squad down there in Arkansas. That's where we're planning on being on the 25th, and kind of getting to know each other, right? That's kind of the plan. Mm-hmm. And David, you may or may not be there, right? Is that a plan?
I'm kind of at the mercy of my kids' baseball schedule right now.
Understood. But we knew that this was like and by the way, just so you guys know behind the scenes, obviously we want everyone to be there, but people that are hurt or have other things like going on. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh my God, can't make it, right? So that's gonna be a really cool. And if you're in that area, in that Arkansas area, have a team, or want to come in or put a pickup team, whatever you want to do, would love to play anybody. Do you know what I mean? Like we want to have fun. We want to play a lot of teams, want to hang out. So we look forward to going down to Arkansas. We went there last year I think it was early, actually. It was more like in February. We went down to Arkansas and we really had a good time down there. I mean, it was good to get to know each other. We saw some things we need to work on. Maybe we solved one of the two of those throughout the year. Who knows? But that's going to be the plan for those of you that were following along on the schedule, because that one is not listed, but it's going to be March 25th in Arkansas. All right, so David, as we wrap up here in a few minutes, is there any last-minute thoughts, topics, shout-outs, anything you want to give here while here live on the podcast?
I mean, just obviously the one big one for me. I know I'm on a pure team, and it was funny enough. I brought this up in the group chat the other day. I played on a Louisville Slugger team in 2019, and I swung pure. And now I'm playing on a pure team, and I swing Louisville Slugger. It's a little backwards.
We're gonna get that right one day, but
but it works out. So obviously, the Louisville Slugger thing. If you go to sluggerslowpitch.com, DB25 at checkout. Save some money, help me out a little bit, that kind of thing. And then as far as shout outs, obviously Jay Red there, just continue to get better. The guys in the chat, the Mooch, Cashwell, all those folks, good friends of mine. I always look forward to those folks. And, the one final thing, you just touched on it there with the Arkansas thing. I know we've touched on it with some like the conference events. That's another way, if you want to get into the conference, to get noticed. Flip has done this before. Other people have done it. Like, find a way to get on a team. If you have to put your own team in, go to the trip, go to the snowball, go to your open winter worlds. If you can make the Challenge Cup teams, awesome. Do that too. If you really truthfully want to play at the higher level, obviously, like you said earlier, availability is your best ability. That's number one. But get yourself in front of people. I promise you, there are conference players consistently watching folks to see what they can do. And if you wow somebody, great. And it's not just about that one random 500-foot home run in 35-degree weather. Run out the box. Hustle out your plays. Even if you're out, hustle. Have a good attitude. All that good stuff. Be good teammates. Don't get ridiculously belligerent, drunk. All that good stuff. So just go play your off-season events where all the people that play conference are. You're more likely to get noticed.
Yep, good point. And I want to add one small thing onto that too, David, is that even if you go out there and get absolutely annihilated on, like, let's say you're playing on a team, like, how many times have you played a team, you win, make up the score, because we've been on the other side of this too. You win 47-4, but you're like, you know what? Who was really good? The shortstop. Do you know what I mean? Like, that guy could not be stopped. He was 4 for 4 and made 6 good plays in the field. Like, so people get noticed, like, nothing to do with the score of the game. Do you know what I mean? So, like, just by getting yourself out there and playing your best. Right. So, very good point. David Bare, appreciate you, my man. Good luck with the knee. I'm sure I'll see you in the group chat here in about 14 seconds before you go out to basketball practice. So, thank you. Mr. David Bare here. This was episode number 66. Softball podcast brought to you by the Siteman Cancer Center. Reminder, sitemansoftball.com/store. Get some gear. Proceeds going to cancer research. We'll see you next time, my friends.